everybody, it's McGann back with episode 5 of the OA Truth versus Lies evaluation, breakdown, whatever you want to call this thing. And just a quick note, if you are really watching closely, you're going to see that some of the things I wrote down for episode 3 have kind of shifted and changed. That's because that video corrupted and I had to redo that episode after I had already filmed episode 4. So if you notice that there are some changes, the points are still the same, just the wording may be different. But on to episode 5, going straight down to the lies column, starting with number, my goodness, 61. And in this episode, we see Hap going over to Cuba to watch Renata play her guitar and see that there's something special about her. Hap offers to take Renata with him to the United States and she refuses him. And it all just boils down to another, why does OA know this? Because this should have been written in a way that we don't know what is going on with Hap and Renata until Homer gets involved, because I believe Homer would have told OA everything. And then all we would need is a simple explanation of Hap saying, well, Renata doesn't like me, she likes younger men. We didn't need to see all this, especially all the detail of it that OA would have to describe that she couldn't possibly know. Next, I'm putting down another lie that Scott in OA's story seems to get more skeptical of OA's situation, and this happens shortly after OA hears the group of 5 talking about whether or not they believe her story in the drug house. You know, where she was standing in the stairwell and she could hear them talking about her and debating if what she's saying is true. And then all of a sudden, Scott seemed to get more and more and more and more skeptical. And that again seemed to me like something to put in there so that she could have a skeptic and show how she converted him through her truth. But up in the truth column, I found it to be a very true and clever moment when Hap starts playing the heavy metal music because somebody comes to his door and the captives are pounding on the glass screaming for help. That was a smart and realistic way to cover his tracks so that nobody could hear what was going on downstairs. But then, haha, back down to the lies. We have another moment that turns out to be progressive to the plot later on that OA should know nothing about. Yes, they saw the sheriff, but there's no audio as far as I could tell, so how do they know the detailed conversation that Hap had with the sheriff? And especially to the degree that the sheriff is talking about his wife's ASL. Really, this feels like OA is trying to be a crappy screenwriter, and she says, hey, this is going to be important to the story later, so we need to find a way to introduce it earlier so that people buy it. But instead, I'm just scratching my head here going, OA shouldn't know anything about this conversation and what the specifics of it were about. Then I have down how unobservant OA describes Hap to be. For someone that's a research-obsessed scientist, sure, I can believe that he gets lost in his work. But when he is so concerned about his subject's captivity and they're loose and moving around him, I don't see how he's not picking up on things like how OA had the vacuum sitting in the upright position, which, as anybody who's ever ran a vacuum knows, it makes a much different sound than when a vacuum is moving around picking up dirt. Hap also didn't notice that Homer ran right past him. I'm sorry, peripheral vision is a thing, and if Hap has a problem with it, why doesn't the story say that? There's no way that someone who is even engrossed in their work doesn't see somebody running off about 5 to 10 feet away from them. You're gonna see a flash of white streak by, and you're gonna look over and investigate. That's what any normal person in the entire world would do. Back up to truth, number 17. When OA is speaking with the FBI counselor and she's kind of doubting herself, the counselor says that he saw her medical reports that showed evidence of vitamin D deficiency, dental decay, and metal residue in her scars. So if nothing else, we can verify that she was held captive. She showed medical signs of being held captive for a long period of time, and she had metal residue in her scars, which means she was likely in a mine or something similar. So we can say that that part of her story, at least, is very true. Then French asked, what if they're evil? And as much as this show tries to stay away from religion, it's also very heavily indoctrinated in sort of a Christianity type religion. But it's like a little bit separate, like OA-ism would be its own sect of Christianity, because we have this very clear sense of heaven and an afterlife and angels. So even though they don't come out and say Christianity, I think that's definitely what OA is branching off of. Because in a lot of Christian stories, the devil comes to present you with what seems like exactly what you need or want in that moment. And it's a really neat idea to me for French to question if they're evil, if they're doing what's right. Now back to lies. I know it's your favorite for all the people that love this show and really want to believe in OA and think I'm just being so mean to her. I call complete BS shenanigans that Homer got loose in the hotel. He tried to get help at the desk called Hap, and Homer ran away out of the hotel trying to get free. Okay, actually that part I'm all good with, but what really upsets me is that Hap had already gotten in front of Homer when he had gone down the road a little ways. And it wasn't just like he went outside and straight down the road. Homer picked a direction. He could have gone left or right, and he could have gone straight forward or behind him after choosing left or right. So when he had 6 different directions that he could have gone, 1, how did Hap know which way he was going to go? And 2, how did Hap get out of the hotel room and get in front of him? He was in his room when Homer ran away. He was in his room to answer the phone when the front desk called him. So how did he teleport to get in front of Homer? It's not possible. Homer should have been free. Maybe I can believe that Homer got scared, freaked out, and came back to Hap, but there's no way that I can believe that Hap got in front of Homer any more than I can believe that Hap chased OA down when she got free and caught her that quickly, just 10 seconds behind her. Another part that made no sense is how Hap can be in Cuba and input audio feed into his basement so that the captives have to listen to Homer and Renata getting it on. But he's never shown to have sound that goes with the video recordings he's always taking of the captives. Why would Hap afford the captives that kind of luxury of not knowing what they're saying? That would be the quickest and easiest way to get the research information he wants about the movements. And since OA somehow knows everything else that Hap always does, I will not believe that OA wouldn't know that the basement was bugged and he was listening to them. So trying to say that Hap hid that fact from them doesn't fly for me. It doesn't work. Then I have down French's reaction to Homer and Renata sort of having this affair against OA. And French takes it very personal. He gets very upset about it and says, oh, he never would have broken and acted like that and cheated on OA. And that just shows how committed French has now become to OA's story. All the things I've talked about before with the group of 5 being overly invested and being from broken, bad situations and wanting something to cling on to, well, now we have French clinging. He's now at the point where he's getting very emotional and upset, not over things that's happening to him, but things that OA says have happened to her. Next, I found it really unbelievable that Scott's gas line broke and he ratted out their plan to Hap in a heartbeat. I understand the degree that people get scared and they will do anything to not have to experience pain, but Scott is aware that he has been killed over and over and over again and there's really no repercussion for it. So to try and get out of that one near-death experience, he was going to sacrifice his only chance of ever getting free. And I mean, he even tells Hap that OA isn't blind anymore, and really, what did he think that was going to get him? It doesn't even make sense for how he would ration this out. So even though I want to give Scott credit for being scared in that moment, there's no way I'm buying that he just decided to rat out every detail of the plan without Hap even giving any concessions to him about letting him go. And Scott isn't stupid. He's not going to believe that Hap is going to let him go if he gives him the right amount of information. Not from that testing and not from captivity. So why jeopardize everything to avoid one experiment when you know probably next week you're going to go through the same thing again? And number 69 on the lies list, which is certainly a lot longer than any other list. I know people are probably complaining, but this is what I'm finding. Why does Hap put what looks like microphones in the captive's ears for the near-death experience experiments? And I am very confident that they are microphones because it looks like the exact same device that Homer pulled out of his shirt when Hap told him there was a microphone in there. And I'm not getting this because Hap is supposed to be a really well-educated, intelligent scientist. If he does believe that the captives are leaving their bodies and going to another dimension, then why try to listen for it through their ears? I mean, they're gone, they're not in their bodies, they're not even in this plane of reality as far as we know, so why would you expect to hear anything? And to the same extent, it kind of implies that the tape Homer found before was a similar type of recording with the microphones in his ears. You know, the one where the people are chasing him down and they say, "Do you know Dr. Roberts? Your name is not Homer." I have no idea what else that could be from, if not from a near-death experience, yet it makes absolutely no sense. Because any which way you try to spin this research, if Hap is trying to hear what they're hearing on the other side, it's just not possible. That's not how science works. You would only be able to hear what is physically coming in and out. And maybe Hap is trying to record that whoosh noise he described to OA before he captured her, but that still doesn't make sense to me to put the microphone in the ears because the soul returning to the body wouldn't go through the ears. Even if you heard a noise, that would be through your ears, and there's no way that underwater the same kind of noise quality would be available. It's completely bizarre and it doesn't make any scientific sense as far as I can figure it. Then I have another "how does OA know this?" Because she describes Hap watching them on a monitor and he's flossing his teeth until they bleed. That is so specific. It sounds good for a story, but it's not possible for a captive in a basement to know what he was doing upstairs. Then Hap kills Scott, throws him back in the basement, and OA and Homer spend 15 hours doing movements to try and bring him back to life. And for the sake of the story, I would like to give that the benefit of the doubt, but I find it really stupid that Scott sucks all this blood back into his body. Even if those movements had given Scott the ability to come back to life and fix his brain so that it wasn't suffocated or atrophied, and heal the sickness that was already in his body, okay, I'm fine with that, but actually sucking his blood back into his body after it was on that filthy floor and was probably covered with all kinds of gross bacteria and dirt and mineral deposits and yuck. That's where it gets too fantastic to believe, because if they could heal Scott and bring his brain back to consciousness after all that time where there should be no chance of that happening, then why didn't they just help him generate new blood since the impossible is possible? It's another detail that looks good and sounds good, but if you actually look at what their powers are, it doesn't make a lot of sense. They also can't make up their minds. Did Scott eat a creature on the other side and decide to come back like the other angels did? Or did OA and Homer perform the movements and forcibly bring Scott back to life? You can't have it both ways. It's just more nonsensical double talk. My last note for episode 5 is how OA repeatedly goes on about how 5 people are needed to do the movements and make it work. But it only took OA and Homer to heal Scott? Now, if OA wanted to say that it takes 5 people to open the portal or the invisible river for the invisible self, or whatever way you want to describe that, if it takes 5 people for that to work, okay. But she never explains that. She insists that there have to be 5 people, but then she shows several times in the series that only 2 people are really needed to make things work from the movements. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed enough to like, subscribe, and share this video. I've also got a lot of other videos on my channel that you are fully encouraged to go check out. Plus, you can find me on Facebook at Say Halo Goodbye, which is my gamer tag, or Twitter at _Fanily.